Hello, Maureen. Welcome to you too. As I said, we've got about 30 joining today. I'm hoping that everybody gets a chance to grab something to eat. If you've got your lunch, don't worry, go ahead and have your lunch, just so we can make good use of your time also. As we start and the recording's on, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge where I am. So I'm on Wurundjeri country today, and I'd like to pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past, present and emerging, and particularly the people of the Kulin Nation. And I extend my respects to the lands on where you're joining from today. I know that we're not all Melbourne based today, so welcome to you all. I also extend my acknowledgement to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that may be joining us today. It's a real pleasure to offer you this masterclass today. We offer the masterclasses on a monthly basis, and people drop in between 12 and 1 or thereabouts in their lunch hour. And I think it's a good way. One of my coaches many years ago actually said to me, Rita, when we feed our brain, we should also when we're feeding our stomachs rather, we should feed our brain. And I really liked that as a frame, because I think where we can, make sure that we're maybe grabbing a bite to eat, but then also learning something and hopefully some content that helps you. I think that's a really good practice to get into. So today's session is all about innovation in our teams. Can I just do a check? Can everyone see my slides? Let's start off with that. Beautiful. Okay.
Yes, I can.
If we lose that for any reason, let me know. Also, feel free to use the chat function. I've just gone ahead in the slides. Let me get back to chat. I'm going to pop my chat over here, and that way we can converse and keep the conversation going through the chat. So please feel free to do that today. I always welcome people to unmute. So of course, feel free to do that too, because I think then it makes it more of a conversation, which is great too. So today's masterclass is all around innovation, and we've entitled it Permission to Innovate, which is a little bit cheeky, because really, if we're developing innovative cultures and we've got really great psychological safety in our teams, then people shouldn't feel the need to ask like they, need to get that permission. So it is a little bit of I guess a little bit of irony there in the title. But the empowering teams to think and create is certainly no irony whatsoever intended there. We do want to be able to empower our teams really to be able to think, to create, to play, to deal with ambiguity, all of those great things that really ensure that we've got the conditions for really good innovation. So my plan today is to take you through a bunch of information. Maybe some you do know, it might consolidate what you already know, some might be new to you. And then also to have a conversation. And throughout the masterclass, I will be stopping and pausing and asking for your reflections, which again, you are more than welcome to share either through the chat or just unmute and pop your hand up so I can see you, and then hand the mic over to you, or the metaphoric mic. Does that sound okay for everybody? Beautiful. All right, off we go then with our permission to innovate. Just to get us kind of started, I'd like to begin the session with a little bit of a question. And that is, if you think about a time when in your team, and that is either the team you lead or that you have led in the past, or the team that you're in now, even if you're not a leader, but can you think of a time when you've had a breakthrough as a team? And what made that breakthrough possible? So just a little moment or so, and I'm very happy again. Actually, I'd love people to speak to this one rather than in the chat, if that's okay. So think about a time when you had a team breakthrough. What made it possible? Not seeing any hands go up yet, but that's okay, because I can always just give a gentle nudge. As Jen says to me all the time, just a gentle nudge. Jen from my team, who's, it's excellent that Jen's been able to join us today. Hello, Sam. How are you? You're right in the middle of my screen.
Good.
How are you doing? Good. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Is there a time that you can think of where your teams had a bit of a breakthrough, and what made the breakthrough possible?
Yeah, I actually put in the chat time, because sometimes we have, sorry, that's all right.
No,
I think we don't allow space and time to innovate. So I think that's the key, and making regular time.
Yeah, I reckon
we can get the breakthroughs.
Yeah, and I think when a few slides forward, that's a key barrier to innovation, right? Is that time factor. Beautiful. Thank you. I'm glad I picked on you because, and I didn't even see the chat. So that was good. Hey, James, over to you because you were the first one in today. So 10 points for you because you were the first one in. Anything that comes to mind for you when your team has had a breakthrough? What's led to it?
Yeah. Hey, there's a background noise.
Perfect.
The thing that came to mind for me was systems, actually, sort of introducing new systems and also killing off old systems that weren't serving well. And I feel like I'm part of quite a leaderful team in the sense that people have permission. I, kind of came to the training because I think it's a strength of the team in some ways. And that sort of being leaderful has meant that people have been actively encouraged to suggest when a system isn't serving us well, or, if we're between systems, let's stop doing both things. Let's just do this one that seems to be serving us better. It's just invited and affirmed when those proposals are made.
Yeah, nice one. That's a really good insight there, James, because I think usually when teams are looking at new, and innovation always, prompts us really to think about new, we most of the time, and I'm going to generalize here, so please feel free to disagree with me, but most of the time we don't think about what we need to stop doing in order to make room for the new. And I think, Sam, it also leads into your comment with time, because what happens then is we get overwhelmed almost, and we think, oh, we've got to focus on the new thing. We don't have time, and we don't necessarily think first to let go of whatever it is that's stopping us from being innovative or perhaps being more creative. And then we get stuck in a vicious cycle. And so I think both of those things are absolutely valid, and they are absolutely barriers that we'll see to innovation. Just in a little moment when I show you some statistics, some Australian-based statistics on innovation in our country, which is super useful, I think, from the ABS. It is a bit of a mindset. So if we're thinking about, permission to innovate, as our title suggests today for this masterclass, it is absolutely going to, consider time, investment, systems, plus a whole bunch of other things. And most importantly, it really is going to be about adopting an innovative mindset. And so that is, are we prepared to have a mindset which really encourages that innovation, that growth, that creativity, or are we stuck with a mindset that we currently have? So to take us forward, now this data, it's actually not so bad. I suspected that it would be worse. There is a lot here, so just bear with me as I take you through it. This is data that comes from two sources. The Australian Bureau of Statistics 22-23 survey that they ran, about 7,000 businesses, 82% response rate, so fairly high, good data from the ABS. We always love some good data to rely upon. And also the Global Innovation Index. Now, I wanted to give you a snapshot here, and you might know these statistics already from organisations that you work in, but in terms of how Australia fares as an innovative country, you can see there the top half really focuses on that ABS data and really looking at to what extent are Australian businesses innovative. And we, 50% or almost 46% are saying, they're reporting as being innovation active. And when you look at the data, if you want to kind of nerd out like I do on data, it gives us a nice definition of what innovation equals and all of those things, because obviously, that comes into play there. But almost 50% of these businesses, so out of 7,000 that were surveyed, would say that they're innovation active, which I think is really great for our country. You can see there 39% of businesses introduce new goods, services or processes, which isn't so bad either. Only 22% of businesses, though, introduced goods or services specifically with innovation in mind. So that other statistic, could be a refresh of, or rather new goods or services, whereas that 22% is maybe a refresh of goods and services innovations. And then 31% of businesses introduced process innovations. And process, to go to James' point before on systems, I reckon that's always one of the trickier ones. It generally has a tech component, and everyone goes, because of the cost and the time and the investment and all those things with tech, and rightly so also. When we look at, though, how Australia ranks globally, we are 24 out of 132 economies globally, in terms of our innovation. That is how innovative we are as a country. And you can see there who the top 5 most innovative countries are, well ahead of us. So I looked at this and I think part of me wanted to categorically say, well, are we very good or are we, not so good? I walked away from this data going, we're not bad. It's not excellent. Like I'd rather be kind of one of those countries that's really breaking through on innovation for a whole bunch of reasons. But you can see there the company, that is in that top 5. When you're looking at this from your organisation perspective, but also just as being in Australian businesses, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this data? Good, bad, neutral?
Just one thought, Rita. This is particular, sort of focused on the world of businesses and businesses self-reporting and so on. And so I'm curious what that means for non-government organisations, although Climate Works is based within Monash University, where we're sort of like a quasi-NGO, an organisation not so much interested in goods and services and so on, but public good, public policy and so on. Yeah, whether it'll be very different.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same. Yeah, the Windermere. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in different businesses, but different in terms of non-for-profits and NGOs. So from both of your perspectives, do you think, in your experience in NGOs and non-for-profits, would you categorise yourselves as innovative?
As much as we can be with our financial situation, I guess. I mean, that certainly holds us back.
Yeah.
We're trying to be more because we invest in our ICT space. So, I think it's definitely on our strat plan. But yeah, I think, we're certainly held back a bit by budget. Yeah.
Any other thoughts from anyone? Particularly if you're not in that for-profit space. Might want to hold that thought. Let's look at some other data just so we can get a sense. Remember, so my first question was, when your teams had a breakthrough, what led to that breakthrough, or really what got in the way? And this is, again, data, so from the same source, from the ABS, those same 7,000 businesses that were surveyed. And these are the things that get in the way of innovation that they cite. So resources, obviously, lack of skilled people with the particular skills, and our population is relatively small here in Australia. It is always going to be an issue for us. So lack of skills within the labour market, but then that third statistic is lack of skills within that actual business. Cost, uncertain demand. Like, would we invest as a business or any type of entity for that matter? What's going to be our catalyst really to invest if we're not sure on demand? And we know that in the last 5 years, demand in certain, products and services lines has certainly fluctuated and continues to fluctuate, where we've got either extraordinary demand where the need, organisations just can't keep up with the need, or a complete surplus, particularly within that services space. And you can see their government regulation and so on and so forth. So there are some clear barriers. Maybe as you're looking at this list, you're thinking, those barriers might resonate for us. And I say all of this, I guess, in the context of there's often limited we can do to change any of this as individuals that are leading teams. And so I wanted to at least give you an overarching view of innovation within our country and where we sit, but also, I guess, to remind us that as leaders, often with very little control over any of these things, unless we're sitting, at a kind of board or CEO level, what can we do? And today's masterclass is really equipping the everyday leader who has limited control really over these factors with some ideas around what you can do to create more innovation within your team. Again, keep the comments coming. For those of you that have just joined, welcome. We have recorded the session. Now, these are some brands that I'm sure you would be all too familiar with. They're big brands, and they are, if we think about kind of innovative companies, because often we might be inspired. I know that when I was leading the HR team at Swinburne University, which was, about 7 years ago, I was an executive in that business for many, many years, and prior to that, a bunch of industries, including tech and financial services. But I remember, and I actually should have put their logo up, there was an organisation which is still around called Atlassian. And Atlassian are a tech-based organisation that produce, systems for organisations to really help them get better at what they're doing. So one of their systems, for example, is called Confluence, which some of you may or may not use. They do a bunch of things now, but back at the time, they were kind of really leading in that tech innovative space. Now, I worked in a university, and some of you, this may or may not resonate for some of you, but universities, they are equally very innovative in terms of research and, publications and teaching and all of those things, but they can also be environments where innovation can be stifled because of bureaucracy that can sometimes exist within certain parts of universities. And so Atlassian was a real draw card to me. They had this really, really cool practice called Ship It. And basically what they would do on Ship It days, they would host a day every month, a day and a half actually, for their team members across their business. And they had about 1,500 people at the time. They're bigger now. They would encourage their teams to work on an idea that would, an idea like a passion project that could also be aligned to one of Atlassian's goals. And it was not an Atlassian sponsored project per se. This was an opportunity for teams to get together and almost work in a hackathon style, if that makes sense to you, kind of all in, 24, 48 hours. Of course, they'd go home to sleep. They weren't working through the night. And then they would have an opportunity to present these ideas back to their executive team. And 10% of all the ideas would always be endorsed, which then meant that Atlassian would take them on and introduce them to their project cycle for rollout. So you can imagine the sense of pride for these teams, right? Because they were given the time and space, unencumbered, to think really broadly about a business idea that would absolutely contribute. So passion project for them, but also contribute to Atlassian's bottom line. And if you think and look at these logos that are on the screen right now, and some of them might be more familiar to you than others, but they all have an element of innovation that is built into their culture. And whether we like these brands or not, for different reasons, it's hard to argue with the level of innovation that comes from these brands. And a lot of it, when you actually research, what's special about them, it's not so much their billionaire founders or their what seems to be, never-ending supply of cash to them and available for reinvestment into innovation. A lot of it comes down to this innovation mindset and the cultures that they build for their teams to actually engage in this innovation mindset. So whether we like them or not, that's up to you. And I won't ask you to share that, of course, in the chat unless you want to. But really, there is a lot that we can learn from developing innovative cultures that create some of these great brands, but also great products and services. All right. I wanted to share this with you. So again, I don't mean to be divisive with putting up an article about Jeff Bezos or Amazon for that matter. This article is now almost 10 years old. So it's not new. It came from The Guardian. And what he says here, which I really like, he says down the bottom, I've made billions of dollars of failures at Amazon. Literally, Bezos told the Business Insider, blah, 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 saying that it would be akin to having a root canal with no anesthesia to dwell on them. Now, I've had a root canal before. I don't know how many of you have had a root canal before. It is not a pleasurable experience whatsoever. And so having it without anesthesia would be even worse. But I really love there that he's saying, if I had to dwell on them, it's painful. So I really love this philosophy that Bezos brings in. And this was 10 years ago, where he's saying, you know what, we're going to stuff some things up. We are going to have some failure as part of our ability to innovate. But that failure should actually be embraced rather than dwelling on it like something, that we want to try and avoid, because of course you would avoid a root canal anyway, and especially one without anesthesia. So talk about an image in our mind, right? I'd rather not be thinking about root canals without anesthesia. But it does bring me to the point around culture. And so with all leadership practices, we've often got to think about, well, what's the tone that we're setting from the top in terms of culture? And those organizations, as I said, are certainly doing something to infuse it within their culture. And so this is a little innovation culture check for you. And there are some questions here that you might want to ponder on today. Feel free to, if you're thinking we're doing that really well, or gee, we need to be doing a bit more of that, and you're happy to publicly share that, of course, just in the chat, limited to this group, feel free to contribute. But the first question I've got for you there is, does your organization actually foster this creativity, risk-taking, experimentation, continuous learning approach? And when you're thinking about this question, and if you want to take a little snapshot of these questions and maybe talk about them with some colleagues, actually, do you do it? So I know a lot of organizations say they do, and I'm certainly not suggesting that your organizations do this, but we can have innovation as one of our values. We can have play. We can have, teamwork. We can have trust. We can have continuous learning and development. We can have all of these things, but unless we are prepared to really bring those things to life, we might be hindering our ability to really create and sustain a culture of innovation. Are your employees challenged, and encouraged to actually challenge the status quo? So if they don't agree, are we actually and actively inviting dialogue in our organizations? And if not, why not? And if time is coming up as one of those barriers to this, is time really the thing that's getting in the way? Are employees actively encouraged to really take ownership of their work? Now, innovation, if we think about those brands that we just saw on our slide before, and you might be thinking of others that you consider to be really innovative brands, they are brands with massive amounts of investment available to them to innovate. But I reckon innovation happens in and can happen in every single organization, irrespective of your budget. And that particular third point there is really an invitation to you and those in your team to really think about how much are they the process owner of what they do. So if they notice that something's not going well, or there's a mistake, or there's an enhancement that could be made, do they have the ability to say, hey, we could change something here, and this could make a huge difference to those that we serve, whoever that might be, whoever your customers or clients or stakeholders are. So we don't need we don't need Apple-sized budgets to be able to do that, or Tesla-sized budgets, but we do need people, again, that can adopt this innovative mindset. Is failure seen as a natural part of the innovation process? Or do we dwell on it, like Jeff Bezos was suggesting that we don't do, like it's root canal rather, without an anesthetic, and therefore we steer away from it? Is it seen as part of the process? And I want to touch on that in a moment, particularly around psychological safety. And then you as leaders, do you provide that supportive and empowering leadership? And that's really role modeling. So this is just a little culture checklist around innovation. And I think we could keep going slides and slides on this, and we could have a whole masterclass on it. But really, if we're going to encourage a sense of innovation and a culture of innovation, and really give our teams permission to innovate, then this at the very least is what we should be thinking about. Again, very welcome for your thoughts and comments. Just pop them in the chat if you are thinking something and it's inspiring some thought. Today's presentation is going to focus around these 4 elements of the innovative team, what I call the innovative team. And we've got purpose, impact, curiosity, and safety. And in order to really bring about permission to innovate, along with culture, which if I was to place it, probably would sit right in the middle, it's culture of innovation. But in order to have a culture of innovation, we've got to have these 4 pillars, which I'm going to talk to you about now. So the first one that we saw is curiosity, and it was down the bottom in blue in our model. These are, leading with curiosity. I often talk to teams about suspending judgment, and particularly when we're working with other people and when we are nutting through some stuff, curiosity is always a great thing that helps us to suspend judgment and really be curious and really think about an issue from someone else's perspective. So these are some tips that you might think about. So again, as one of the key pillars for innovation, curiosity is going to be one of those things that you need in your teams. So be on the lookout for assumptions. And assumptions, it's almost our biases. So what are the things that we think to be true, but we don't really test them. We just assume that that is the case. We assume maybe what our stakeholders may or may not feel about something that we might want to do, or playing with an idea. We assume that we have no time or money, and that might not be assumption, that might be very real. But money can always be moved around, right, in a business. So we can look to change where we're choosing to invest in things. So those assumptions are really critical. And just, sometimes this creates a mindset of it's always been like this, it's always going to be like this. That could be a limiting factor for you. The biggest part of curiosity is going to be leading with some questions. And my favorite questions are the what and how questions. If you've been in any of my leadership masterclasses or programs before, you'll know that I love particularly what and how questions. Why questions are okay. There is one in there, but why questions can be a bit accusatory. We're going to teach you an exercise in a moment, which is about why questions, but using them carefully so people don't feel like why, and we're pointing fingers. I really like, so what if we do this? What if we don't do this? It's kind of like, what's the opportunity cost? Why would we be thinking about this now? So why now? Sometimes with innovation, when we might not be ready, we might not have the funds, we might not have the time. But if we don't do it now, then what's the cost of that? What's the cost if we do it in 6 months or in 2 years? What does that do in terms of any opportunity? And one of my favorites, it's the what's in it for them. And this question really puts us in the position of our stakeholders and gets us, really tuning in from an empathy perspective. What would it do for them if we do this? And getting really curious. So really putting on that curiosity cap and getting really curious. I think there's real power in reframing problems. So particularly when you're stuck, when there's a barrier, it's all right, okay, so what's another way that we can think about this? What's another way that we could approach that group of stakeholders, or communities that we serve, or politicians or boards, or whoever it is that's within your orbit? But what's another way that we can think about this, really, again, to unlock maybe some different answers? Leading by example. You as leaders, if you're able to demonstrate curiosity, and particularly with questions, you will be encouraging your team to do so. And I really actively encourage you to do that. I reckon a lot of organizations, when I go in and work with teams, one of the biggest bugbears I hear is we work in silos. Does that resonate for anybody else? We work in silos. We don't really talk to others. It's not because we don't like them. They're great, but we're busy. They're busy. We're just focusing on our thing, not able to focus on others' things. When you can create your teams with other teams, and it sounds like, wouldn't we always, because we're working in the same organization, but not always, because if we're focused down our lane and we're really conscientious and really focused, it's not always easy to really jump in and just spend some time shadowing someone in another department. What are they doing? How are they doing it? Encouraging this exploration and risk-taking, which goes into psychological safety, and certainly providing learning resources and opportunities. And it doesn't need to be sending them on some fancy innovation or strategic thinking course. It could be just sharing some good reading material, even having a discussion as a team. Hey, do you know that Australia ranks, 24 out of 132 countries? We can't control that ranking, but what can we do? Even something like that is enough to really spur on this thinking. So that's leading with curiosity. I mentioned before that I don't love a why question, but in terms of leading with curiosity, I reckon this is a really great tool. Has anyone seen this before? Just pop your hand up, little reaction, or physically pop your hand up if you have seen this before. Beautiful. Some of you have. Okay, it's the 5 whys. And it is a tool which is a quick one that you can use with your team as you are nutting out a problem. And this is particularly useful if you want your team to be more curious and you want to be more curious about something, but you you kind of can't get to the root cause. You know, no amount of curiosity is helping you to move through whatever issue the team is. So I've got a scenario for you here. It's a really, it's a light one, and just to work through. But basically the 5 whys, you would get some flip charts, big flip charts for your team, pop them around a room, and you would start off with the first flip chart, and you would write the problem statement up the top on the first flip chart. And so in this scenario, the problem statement for this particular person and team is that they ran through a red light. Ouch. The fine here in Victoria, at least, is quite hefty for that. And there's a few demerit points, no doubt, that would be removed from your license too, if you ran through a red light. So if that's our problem statement, we've got to ask why. So why did we run through a red light? Well, in this case, we were running late for work. The second why, it's y to the power of 5. We're going to ask it 5 times. The second why is why were you late for work? Because I woke up late. Why did you wake up late? My alarm didn't work. Why didn't my alarm work? And you can see, so on and so forth, right? And we get down to the root cause of this particular simple problem, and is the person forgot to check their alarm. And let's say that it was updated, they forgot to charge their phone, right? Now, the key, when you're using the 5 whys, the key thing is you're always exploring the answer to the question that you've just answered. So you ran a red light, you're late for work. You are then exploring why you're late for work. You're not exploring the route that you took to work necessarily, or, you know, that intersection is notorious for red light cameras. That's not the question you're exploring. You're always going to, as you drop down your list of whys, you're always going to be exploring what was that question and the answer that you just had for that question above. So you can imagine that if you're, you know, running this scenario in your teams with something like why is our consumer engagement declining? Or why are our customer satisfaction results declining? Or why do we not have enough money to do certain things? Like, you can actually ask big chunky questions using this 5 why technique. So this is one I wanted to share with you. It's certainly one that you could use to expand some more curiosity within your teams. Just a show of hands, do you reckon that might be useful for you? Give me a little reaction if you are not able to show your faces on camera. I would welcome, if you can though, feel free to jump on. All right. Another part, so part of our model, so we've already looked at curiosity. Another part of our model is safety. And here I really want to focus on psychological safety as our key component here. So people innovate very basically when they feel safe to fail and to learn. So when people are comfortable that they're in an environment where they can make a mistake, not be reckless. This is not an invitation for people to be reckless, but certainly when they are free to be able to make a mistake, learn from that mistake, recover from this mistake, reflect, etc., and then adopt the learnings, they will come up with some new ideas. And some will work and some won't, but at least they're happy to try. And the preeminent author in this space is Amy Edmondson, who I've quoted there. She is a scholar from Harvard University. And Amy does a lot of work in this space, particularly in health. She's got a bunch of books and she is excellent if you want to follow any of her stuff on anywhere. She's got a bunch of stuff on YouTube, but also Harvard Business Review is probably a great place to start. But check her out as an author also. She says when people feel safe to try new ideas and learn from errors, they're more willing to take risks and to innovate. And Amy's got a bunch of data that backs this up. So from a psychological safety perspective, what can you do in your teams? Again, this could be a 4-hour workshop on its own, but this is an opportunity for you just to do a sanity check and go, oh, are we doing this or not? First one, you do it as leaders. So model vulnerability and openness. Are you doing enough of this? Are you sharing stuff-ups and mistakes with your team? Are you concealing them? You know, no one likes to share it. It's embarrassing, particularly when you're the leader. You're like, oh my gosh, you know, maybe I might put a bit of pressure on myself and think I should have got that right. We're not always creating psychologically safe environments when we're not sharing that with our team. So if you've stuffed something up, own it, share it. In fact, make it the first thing you share in your leadership team meeting, because people then go, oh, yeah, like, you know, a little while ago, I was reading with my son. He is nearly 10, and we were reading together, and I mucked up a word, and he goes, Mum, he goes, that doesn't say that. And I kind of reread what I read, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. I said, no, I thank you so much. And he looked at me and he goes, but Mum, you don't really make mistakes when we read. And I said, are you kidding? I said, I make mistakes all the time. And I wanted to normalize for him as he is developing his, I'd love him to develop more of a love of books just quietly, but as he's developing, right, hopefully into an avid reader, I want him to understand that we all stuff up, we all make mistakes. So I can't, it's about owning up and going, yeah, actually I did. Good pickup, right? And as leaders, we can absolutely do this in our teams, right? So modeling rather that vulnerability, fostering a culture of learning from failure. And that's you doing that. Actively encouraging diverse perspectives. Hey, let's hear a different point of view on this. Has anyone got a contrary view? Does anyone want to add something different to this discussion so we don't all develop this group think where we're all thinking the same thing? And that also includes that creating opportunities for open dialogue, maybe inviting some other sources, other people that can contribute in a different way to the discussion that you're having. Making psychological safety an explicit priority. And that could, it could include inviting questions like, are we all feeling like we can contribute openly to this discussion? If not, why not? Now, if you feel that that question is too confronting for your team right now, ask it one-on-one. You will hopefully get to a point where you can build up enough safety and trust in the team. And that's that last point on building trust, because that's a foundation where the team can openly answer a question like that. Are we feeling like we can have this discussion right now? If not, why not? What's getting in the way for us? And that trust absolutely underpins psychological safety. And we've got to start, trust is it's almost hard to build collectively in a team, and it's really got to be those one-on-one relationships in a team. But it can be done, and it's got to be the focus. Yeah, I love that, Nadine, the test and learn concept. And that's really, I can see in that there's that reflective practice built in. Nadine, if you wouldn't mind unmuting, is that something that you feel is done across your organisation?
Yes, it actually is. And it's encouraged across all levels, which I think gives an opportunity not just for managers, but also for employee levels and probably more junior levels to start this journey at early stage. And once they are at the end of the journey or at leadership positions, they are more innovative. They are more contributing as well.
Beautiful. Test and learn. And Nadine, do you mind if we tell people your organisation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I work for Honda Australia.
So Honda Australia, so cars. So you can test and learn, and there are so many analogies that we could go right there, from all of it. And you can imagine where my brain's going with those analogies. But isn't that great? Because culturally, this whole concept of test and learn absolutely fits with your business and what you guys do. So I love that. So if anyone else wants to adopt that, I'm sure Nadine won't mind. Sharing is caring, hey? Okay, one of the other aspects, so far we've done curiosity, we've done safety. The other part of our little Venn diagram that we're looking at today is purpose. Now, I've got a little compass there because without it, teams and individuals in teams can be really well-intentioned, but if we don't help them navigate where we're going as an organisation from a purpose perspective, it creates a mess, because then you've got a bunch of eager, energetic individuals with lots of ideas and nowhere to really channel them, because it's like, well, what business strategy do I direct that idea and that energy into? So again, this is a checklist for you, and feel free to take a little snapshot. These are a bunch of questions that will just get you thinking about purpose, and particularly how this is contributing to your innovative culture. This is a really basic one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Does your team understand the business goals? As executives and as board directors, we sit around tables and we come up with business goals and strategies, and we don't always do a very good job of sharing those amongst the organisation. And we think that because they are documented in a strategic plan or shared a couple of times a year in a big whole organisation town hall, that people are going to get it. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, they don't. We have to continue to remind them, these are our business goals, this is our purpose. This is where we're heading. These are our strategies, right? We need to remind them. And the clarity needs to be there, obviously, really short, sharp. We don't want people reading the strategic plan necessarily every day. Maybe, I don't know, you might want that in your business. For me, it would be 5 or 6 really short, sharp key goals that everyone in the business needs to know and that everyone's pointing towards. So does the team know it? Do they know those business goals? Do they know how their work on a daily basis contributes to the achievement of those business goals? So if I'm working and I'm doing lots of busy work and I'm feeling very productive, but I don't know that my work is contributing to where that compass is pointing north, then I'm going to be sitting here going, oh, is the work that I'm doing valuable? Does anyone care? Is anyone using my work? Like, hello, it's like kind of shouting out into the ether and going, is anyone listening? Right? So we need to make sure that our teams actually understand their value that they are producing every single day. How does that align to the business goals? Is there alignment between their personal development goals and the business goals? Is there that alignment? And that alignment, they will need to personally do that mapping exercise for themselves, because you, as a business, and it doesn't matter what kind of business or entity you are, your strategy won't necessarily align to everybody in your business, because they might have their own personal development goals. But if they can find that alignment, they will be more actively connected to your purpose and to their purpose, and therefore contributing to innovation. Now we go to values, and I kind of picked on values before. Not that I want to pick on values. Values are absolutely important, but the thing that gets my goat more than anything is when we've got a bunch of values and we just put them on a wall or on a nice card with some pretty pictures, and we do values rollouts and all these kinds of things, and they're not really demonstrated. So in order to help people connect with purpose, are your values explicit and are they demonstrated on a day-to-day basis? That is, are we acting in accordance with our values? And then finally, that point, do you encourage a strategic approach in all roles? And this is really the comment I made before, that everybody can be innovative in their roles, right? Because they're the process owner of their job. So we don't need Apple or Tesla or SpaceX size budgets. Everyone can be innovative, but to do that, we need to encourage this strategic approach. This is a little tool which you might want to take a little snapshot of. You know, we won't go through it in detail because I want to get to some Q&A, but in terms of idea generation, as we start to think about, you know, I can create all the right circumstances, but then once we've got these ideas, what do we do with them? Because you're not going to be able to implement every idea. But this is called the How, Wow, Now framework, and it comes from an organization called Group Map. And when you are kind of brainstorming as a team, so you're being curious, you've got the psychological safety, everyone's aligned to the purpose. This little 2x2 is a really good way to test the viability of ideas. So, you know, if it's impossible to implement, but it's a very original idea, then we're not going to can it, but we're going to go, oh, like, how would we do it? That's actually going to fix an audacious problem. So how are we going to do it? You know, but if it's something that's easy to implement and it's kind of, you know, a run-of-the-mill normal idea, then it's like, let's do it now. Like, let's actually do it. Let's make sure that we can implement quickly. So this is it's a little bit like an impact effort matrix for those of you that have worked with those before. And it really helps to, once let's say you're calling for ideas from your team, it helps to categorize those ideas into what can we implement right now and what do we need to have a little bit more of a think about. So I wanted to leave you as one of the tools today that you might want to have a play with following today's session. Another little frame around moving ideas to impact is to really run them through these questions. So what is the idea that we're thinking about? You know, who does it help? Why is it important? What does success look like? So the metrics, which I'll talk about in a moment. When could it be started and what's needed to get it done? So again, rather than canning an idea, you know, we all sometimes hear an idea and go, oh, that's never going to work. Again, my assumptions might come in. If the team can have a discussion focusing on maybe something similar to these 6 questions, it starts to promote that let's have a play, like let's just hold the idea really lightly rather than take it very seriously and run everything through, you know, a very process-driven approval process. Not suggesting that that's not what will happen in your organizations, of course, like we live in the real world, but even before it gets to that stage, these are some questions as we're moving from ideas to having this impact, which is another component that we're looking at. How do, the discussions around this, how does it help us move these ideas? So there are two things that you could think about doing in your team. One is the how, wow, now, which we just saw, and then also these 6 questions. All right. Now, as we are moving from ideas to impact, because this is often where we get stuck, right? Teams can have great discussions. We have strategy days, we have brainstorming sessions, and then we go, oh, now what do I do? Like, now, how do we actually move this forward? The first thing would be to identify any barriers. So is there a lack of buying, lack of resources? Can we actually do this now from an action perspective? What might be getting in the way? Having metrics and measuring progress kind of, to me, is like taking an idea that's kind of flying around and just tethering it a little bit, not because I want to tether it and control it, but because if we don't, it kind of goes everywhere and nowhere. It's got no clear passage to go. So having metrics and measures and actually measuring that progress helps the idea take some shape. And when we do that, and when we've done it a few times, we then trust in the process. We go, yeah, actually, we can as a team come up with an idea and execute it. Because that's the other problem I see in teams. Teams can come up with the ideas, but that execution sometimes is what can get in the way. Even small wins, celebrate them. So yeah, we wrote our business case. We got approval for our business case. We've been able to find some funding, some seed funding for an idea. Celebrate the wins, even, if it's not final kind of product, but absolutely celebrate them. And engage the whole team in the idea generation process. That how, wow, now framework, even the 5 whys that we've talked about today, they're things that you can engage the whole team in, not just your most senior leaders or those that are the subject matter experts in an area. So now I've got a question for you. We've talked about a bunch of things over the last 50 minutes or so, but what's one thing that you're thinking about that you could use to foster more innovation in your team? And please share it in the chat or come off mute. Was there a favorite that you heard today, or even something that you're currently doing that I've not mentioned? Yeah, beautiful. Talitha, are you thinking about a particular way in which you might do that?
I mean, we do brainstorm a little bit during our team meetings, but I suppose it's usually after we've come up with a solution. So we've kind of said, this is a problem that we are facing currently, and we need to do this to be able to fix it. So we're doing this, and then the team might make suggestions afterwards and say, oh, but did you consider this part, or have you thought about how that affects this? And I suppose it's kind of pointing out that if we'd included them in the original problem solving, then those kinds of things would have been picked up earlier. So yeah, it's more about maybe roping them in a bit earlier rather than coming up with a solution and letting them know.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is go wider in terms of invitees to the discussion. So then you're gathering all the different variations.
Yes.
Because there's nothing worse, right, than you walk out, you think you're brilliant, or everyone thinks they're brilliant because they come out with a great idea, and then you go, oh, we didn't ask that group, and oh, we've missed something really important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful. Good one. Thank you.
Sorry.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to share something you're thinking about doing? What have you been inspired with today? Beautiful, Sam. Excellent. Well, you've got it there. So you've got the 2x2 if you want to use it. And good luck with your team planning day this week too. Sounds like the timing was good.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked, these are the 4 things we've talked about, right? So, we've gone ahead. Purpose. So are we connecting people to the purpose? Are we making sure that we're tethering them, that we're kind of offering them the compass so they can see what they're doing and how what they're doing on a daily basis adds value? That certainly contributes to innovation. Are we being curious enough, and are we creating that environment and that culture of curiosity. And we're going to do that through questions, what and how questions. You've got your 5 whys there that you can also explore, and just connecting people with others in teams. Are we offering safety? And that is particularly through psychological safety. So we can say no idea is a dumb idea, but then that means we're not shooting it down as soon as something comes out of someone's mouth. And we're actually going, I'm interested to learn more about that perspective. I hadn't considered that. Tell us a little bit more about your thinking, right? So you're encouraging it and you're doing it genuinely with a lot of trust, and this should be done all the time. And then finally, impact. You know, and you saw our idea generation, some ideas there on idea generation, the how, wow, now matrix, amongst other things, for you to really start exploring that impact and really take these ideas and brainstorming to the next level so you can actually start to implement some of these innovative ideas that are coming through. Innovation thrives where we've got these 4 pillars. So that's my big takeaway message for you today. And you've got some checklists, obviously, that we've covered with you too. All right. Our time has nearly come to an end, and I want to open up for Q&As. But before we do so, I wanted to invite you to work with me. So a bunch of you already do, and it's lovely to see you and to continue to be connected to your businesses. But here at the Deliberate Leader, there are a bunch of things that we do. So we offer programs and workshops on team dynamics, innovation, such as this one. We do an idea generation workshop. We have a program called the Deliberate Leader. We do a lot of stuff on leading like a coach, and our other signature program is the Impact Leadership Program for women. We offer coaching and mentoring, and we've got some new coaches that have joined our team this year. Our website is launching soon. I've given you a little sneak peek of our logo today, TDL, and also MC, keynote services, speaking. So if you've got an event and you want to have a chat about your theme and what you would like to, that experience that you would like to create, please don't hesitate to reach out. As a thank you for attending today, because I do really appreciate you giving me your lunch hour, there's a QR code there that you can snap, and it gives you access to all of our Deliberate Leader resources. So a lot of what we've talked about today, you know, is scattered throughout the different topics on the Deliberate Leader website. There are a bunch of, you know, leaders that have already joined that community. So feel free to jump on in and just have a little hunt around and see if it's of interest to you. We run a masterclass monthly, so our next masterclass will be in about 4 weeks' time, and we'll release details very, very soon about that topic. But thank you. And I have about 5 minutes if you would like to ask any questions or delve into any aspect that we have covered today. And I'll stop sharing my screen also. There we go. Do you have any questions? Please feel free. Don't feel that you're being, you know, taking time or anything like that. We've got some time.
Question, Rita.
Okay.
I was interested to see the stuff about anticipating barriers to maybe a new idea or a nascent emerging idea. And curious, is getting into that sort of black hat thinking, you know, how might this not go ahead? Can you do that too early? You know, is there a tension between inviting innovation on the one hand and inviting sort of an anticipation of barriers concurrently?
Yeah, definitely. And the black hat thinking comes from obviously that takes me to Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats, right? And the black hat is, you know, kind of that I'm just going to play devil's advocate role. Now, Patrick Lencioni's done a great bunch of work on this. He calls it the 6 zones of genius, and he kind of also talks about, oh, James, we'll fix that up for you. In fact, sorry, Jen, would you mind just popping the link to the Deliberate Leader resource page in the chat so people can go there? I shouldn't say currently under construction, but thank you, James. So Patrick Lencioni's done a bunch of work. So these 6 zones of genius also reflect this kind of black hat thinking and whether it's too soon or not. The reality is that if someone naturally thinks, I don't want to say pessimistically or problem first, and there is always going to be someone in the team like that, right? And we shouldn't cancel out that kind of behavior or say don't be like that or don't do that, because that is naturally a way that someone will approach a situation. I think there's probably some coaching that can be done there for the person from an awareness perspective, just to say, could you reframe your question so it creates dialogue and discussion rather potentially than judgment? And they may not, thanks Jen, they may not intend to be judgmental at all by offering that kind of black hat perspective. But the problem sometimes, and that's with any style, is that it can be received in a different way in which it was intended. So I think particularly when we're trying to create curiosity and innovation in teams, the way that we ask a question is super important, because that will either invite more discussion or it can really shut a conversation down very quickly. Does that help, James? Yeah, beautiful. Excellent. We probably have time for one more question if anyone's got one. You've got the link there from Jen. So that's the QR code, that's where it takes you. So feel free to jump on that and you can have a hunt around our site and we will fix our QR code. Thank you. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I'm happy to hang till 1. If you need to go jump off, do what you need to do before your next meeting. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Monday. It was a pleasure to see you all and have a great week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rita.
See ya.